Ukraine counting bodies as it clears the rubble from one of the deadliest Russian attacks since the invasion almost 1 year ago. CNN senior international correspondent Ben Wiedemann is joining us live from the war zone. He's got details. Ben, I understand the Ukrainian president is calling this missile strike a war crime. Give us the latest.
Yes, that's right. In his nightly address, President Volodymyr Zelensky described it as a war crime. He said that those who are behind this attack that killed 40 people, at least 40 people, there's still 25 people missing. Those behind the attack, he said, will be identified and brought to justice. In the meantime, battles continue to rage here in eastern Ukraine.
Near Bakhmut's front lines, lost souls wander the streets. Those who can't leave won't leave or have given up caring. I put some food on the fire. I chopped some wood, says Svetlana, and decided to go out for some fresh air. Dmitro pays no heed to the shelling. This is my land, he says. I won't leave. The fighting echoes through the fog.
As the Russians seem to be gaining control of Soledar north of here in Bakhmut, the fighting seems to be intensifying. One local resident told us, whereas before mortars were flying over their heads, now it's bullets.
Soldiers prepare trenches inside the city, new defensive positions if the Russians push forward. There will be sandbags with wood on top, says Valentin, and 3 firing positions. On the ever so slightly safer western side of the city, a makeshift market offers the basics. With no electricity or running water, commerce is conducted in the open. My 2 shops were destroyed, says Denis, so I'm selling on the street. But this food is only for those who can afford it. And Serhiy isn't one of them. I'm living like an effing animal, he says. Ivan returns home after collecting firewood. The bitter cold is deadly as the shelling. People have frozen to death in their apartments, he says. On a bluff overlooking Bakhmut, this artillery officer, nicknamed Pilot, says they're up against troops, many of them convicts, with the private military company Wagner. We're fighting against soldiers brought to the slaughter, he says. These Wagner guys have no choice. They're sentenced to death. And then the order comes to open fire.
And we are getting some reports that one of the towns to the south of Bakhmut may have been taken by the Russians. This means, Wolf, that perhaps in the near future the city could be surrounded by Russian forces.
Very worrisome developments indeed. All right, Ben Wiedemann, stay safe over there. Thank you very much. Let's get an update right now on new U.S. efforts to try to help Ukraine fend off this latest Russian assault. Our Pentagon correspondent, Oren Lieberman, is joining us right now. Oren, I understand Patriot missile training involving Ukrainian soldiers will begin on U.S. soil this week. Is that right?
That's right. Well, Fort Sill in Oklahoma, where the U.S. conducts its own training on Patriots for the U.S. military as well as for others, has announced that a team of Ukrainians has arrived to begin training on the Patriot missile system, a system that requires 90 to 100 troops to operate fully. The training expected to take several months, but once that is completed, and the Pentagon is working to accelerate that as much as possible, the Patriot will go to Ukraine to aid in the aerial defense there. So that training expected to begin any day now with the arrival of the Ukrainians. And it's part of what we're seeing from the West. Take a look at this list here. Announcements of bigger and more powerful weapons going in. The UK announced that it would send 12 of its own Challenger 2 tanks. Poland has signaled a willingness to send Leopard tanks. Those are German-made and will require German approval. And of course, the U.S. training on the Patriots to begin. There is a key question here. Could the Patriot have stopped this attack on the Dnipro apartment, that horrible attack where the death toll is at 40 and expected to still rise. It is a question that can't be answered with certainty, but yes, a Patriot missile is a long-range aerial defense system, meaning its radar could have picked up that incoming missile at a greater range, and its missile perhaps able to shoot it down. Of course, first, that training needs to be completed, but there's also a key question for Ukraine. It's getting one Patriot battery from the U.S. and another from Germany. Ukraine will have to decide where it wants to focus those defensive systems. It can't defend the entire country. A Patriot's not capable of that. So it'll have to decide where to prioritize. Presumably one will defend the capital of Kyiv, and then it's up to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and the military on where it'll want to use that other one. So it's not a simple coverall system that will defend Ukraine. Wolf, it will certainly help, however.
Yes, indeed. All right, Oren Lieberman at the Pentagon for us. Thank you very much. Let's get some analysis right now from CNN contributor on Russian affairs, Jill Doherty, and retired U.S. Army General Wesley Clark. He's a CNN military analyst, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. General Clark, we have a lot to discuss, but first, what does it say to you that Russia used a cruise missile against civilians in an apartment building in what President Zelensky says was a war crime?
It's possibly a targeting mistake because this is not a very accurate missile. But the point is, he's using that missile. He knows it's not accurate. And this is a war crime, along with many other war crimes, Wolf. And it's a challenge to the West. We need to take not only patriots and put them in there, we need to indict Mr. Putin and his team for war crimes.
Will the brutality, Jill, of this latest attack spur Western allies to boost support for Ukraine even further?
Well, Wolf, this is a very serious moment. I mean, this really, even in the Russian press, is being written about and reported on. So it's a very important moment. It would appear that it would, precisely because of the brutality of it, however it happened, as the general said, with all of these people who were killed and injured. So you would have to think that there would be more support. But I think, the terrible arithmetic, the math that the Ukrainians have to do is in this area. If you have a fight like this, what do you defend? Maybe when we were talking about Solidar, the city that's not too far from Bakhmut, these are the things that they have to decide. How much do you put into the fight? How much do you give up temporarily in order to protect your troops? Because we're all talking about in the spring some type of offensive. Russians actually talking about it, and the Ukrainians definitely are. So there are a lot of, I think, very difficult decisions that have to be made here by the Ukrainians.
You're absolutely right. General Clark, as you heard, Ukrainian troops are now here in the United States. They're getting ready to train on the Patriot air defense missile system, but it will be months before that makes a difference on the battlefield. Does the U.S. need to provide more Patriots and other weapons to Ukraine right now to help out?
The answer is yes. And we need to be training more for more than one Patriot battery. But we don't have those extra batteries, so we're going to be taking it from somewhere else. This battery is coming from the school at Fort Sill. So we need to really mobilize, Wolf. We need to start producing more. This is a long-term strategic problem for the United States. Unless Ukraine collapses tomorrow, we're going to be in this position of trying to give them assistance 2 months from now, 4 months from now, 8 months from now, a year from now. Putin's not relenting on what he's doing. He's mobilizing in Russia. I think we have to really get serious and understand this is a long-term problem. But we can do more right now. 10 Challenger tanks, wonderful. Why not 20? Why not 40? Why not 60? 50 Bradley fighting vehicles? Why not 200? We're going to have to accept the fact that we can't penny packet this assistance and have it make a decisive difference for Ukraine. It's not enough to keep them there and letting them be bloodied by these kinds of assaults. We need to give them what they need to work Russia, push them out of Ukraine.
Very strong words from General Wesley Clark. Thanks so much for joining us. Jill Doherty, thanks to you as well.